Okay, so are you ready to go deep on this one? Because this deep dive, we are going deep into the belly of the beast with Iron Maiden, No Prayer for the Dying 1990 album. And this is more than just, heavy riffs and screaming vocals.
Right. And speaking of which, this album dives headfirst into like war, hypocrisy, fate, even a dash of the macabre. It's like Dickinson had this like whole notebook full of everything that scared or fascinated him and just poured it into these songs.
Yeah, it's wild how relevant it still feels, decades later. It's like they tapped into something timeless in a way, like something that still speaks to the anxieties and the questions that we're still wrestling with today.
Absolutely. And we've got a lot to unpack. So why don't we start with a song that just throws us right into the firestorm, Tailgunner? I mean, this isn't just a history lesson set to music. It is a visceral punch to the gut.
Yeah, you said it. Those opening lines trace your way back 50 years to the glow of Dresden blood and tears. I mean, talk about setting a scene. You were suddenly right there in the middle of a World War II bombing raid.
And Dickinson does not let up on the throttle. I mean, he uses these incredibly vivid, almost cinematic images, cruel searchlight, dripping death, to really drive home the brutality of war.
And then there's that one line, no more bombers, just one big bomb, which is chilling, especially given that this album dropped just as the Cold War was ending. It's like this reminder that the threat of annihilation never really went away. It just sort of morphed into something different.
Precisely. And that's what makes these lyrics so powerful, is that they tap into those universal fears and anxieties that transcend any one specific time period.
Yeah, speaking of anxieties, let's talk about Holy Smoke, which takes aim at a different kind of battlefield, religious hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And Dickinson does not pull any punches.
No, he goes for the jugular using this biting sarcasm and dark humor that's almost like a verbal caricature. And he calls out these TV queens with their crocodile smiles who are preaching salvation while living in luxury. It's like he's saying, don't try to sell me something you don't believe yourself.
Right, and that comparison of their promises to a satellite circus leaving town. Brilliant. It's that contrast, the sacred versus the superficial, that really makes you question who to trust.
Exactly. Dickinson's not afraid to provoke, to make you uncomfortable. And that's what makes this song so relevant, even today. We're still surrounded by these larger-than-life figures claiming moral authority, and it's up to us to see through the smoke and mirrors.
Okay, from hypocrisy to helplessness, fate's warning takes a hard left turn into some serious existential dread. It's like Dickinson is looking up at the sky and saying, are we really in control here, or are we just along for the ride?
And he frames this question against a backdrop of natural disasters. Volcanoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, this primal, visceral stuff that taps into our deepest fears of the unknown. Are we the lucky ones saved for another day, or are they the lucky ones who are taken away? And that's a question that has haunted humanity since the dawn of time.
And what's so brilliant is that he doesn't offer any easy answers. He just leaves you with this unsettling feeling that we might be at the mercy of forces beyond our comprehension. It's heavy stuff, no pun intended.
But that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're going beyond the surface, beyond just the head-banging riffs, and grappling with these big, uncomfortable questions that we often try to avoid.
And speaking of uncomfortable, let's talk about a song that has sparked endless debate and analysis. Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. Just the title alone is enough to send shivers down your spine.
This is where Dickinson's songwriting takes a turn towards the theatrical, the macabre. There's this unsettling undercurrent of desire and darkness, and that's never explicitly stated, but it's definitely lurking beneath the surface.
He's playing with our expectations using language that's both suggestive and ambiguous. Lines like, unchain your back door, invite me around, take on a whole new meaning in the context of this song's title.
Exactly. It's like he's inviting us into this shadowy world where nothing is quite what it seems.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so unnerving. We're left to fill in the blanks with our own interpretations, which can be even more unsettling than anything he could have explicitly stated.
And that's the genius of it, right? It gets under your skin, makes you think twice.
Right.
We got a ton of messages from listeners, actually, who were both captivated and creeped out, which, knowing Iron Maiden, is probably the desired effect.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And speaking of captivating, let's shift gears to a song that takes us from the shadows of these personal anxieties to the grand stage of history, Mother Russia.
Oh, yeah. Talk about a mood swing. This one feels epic, almost like an anthem for a nation on the verge of transformation.
It's fascinating how Dickinson captures the vastness and mystery of Russia in just a few lines. Mother Russia, how are you sleeping? Middle winter, cold winds blow.
Yeah.
You can practically feel that icy wind across the steppes. You can sense the weight of history bearing down.
And then there's that longing, that hope woven into the lyrics, too. Can you release the anger, the grief? Can you be happy now your people are free? It's like he's pleading with Russia to let go of the past and embrace this brighter future, though acknowledging the deep scars left behind.
Yeah, and it's a powerful sentiment, especially considering the song's timing. I mean, the Berlin Wall had just fallen. The Soviet Union was on the brink of collapse. The world was holding its breath, wondering what would come next.
And we heard from a lot of listeners who are actually living through that historical moment, and they said that this song perfectly captured the mix of fear and exhilaration they felt. One listener from St. Petersburg wrote in saying that it felt like Dickinson was singing directly to her, expressing the hopes and anxieties of an entire generation.
It's a reminder that music has this incredible power to transcend borders and languages, to connect with people on a deeply personal level, even in the midst of these huge global events.
Speaking of connecting on a personal level, let's talk about a song that takes us on a wild ride through the labyrinth of the mind, all in your mind.
This one feels like Dickinson is letting his inner trickster run wild. He's toying with our perceptions, blurring the lines between reality and imagination. One minute he's referencing Chairman Mao, the next, it's the Kama Sutra. It's a dizzying but exhilarating ride.
And yet, amidst all these seemingly random references, there's this thread of social commentary running through it. A listener from Los Angeles wrote in saying that it reminded him of our current obsession with conspiracy theories. How easily we can get caught up in these echo chambers of misinformation.
Yeah, it's a cautionary tale about the power of belief, how our minds can both enlighten and deceive us.
And Dickinson drives that point home with the repetition of, it's all in your mind. It's like he's challenging us to question everything we think we know, to look beyond the surface and consider alternative perspectives.
Which is actually a perfect segue to our next set of songs, because they deal with very different but equally compelling aspects of perception and reality.
You're talking about the 1-2 punch of Kill Me Ce Soir and I'm a Mover, right? I talk about a study in contrasts. One dives into the darkness of fame, the other into the freedom of the open road.
Exactly. Kill Me Ce Soir is chilling, almost prophetic, given its themes of celebrity and mortality. It's like Dickinson is peering into the abyss of fame, seeing both its allure and its potential for destruction.
The lyrics are full of these haunting images and double meanings. He didn't mention the sniper. Sends shivers down my spine every time. It's a stark reminder that fame can make you a target, that even in a crowd you can be utterly alone.
And the line, a new martyr for the Book of Rock. It's tragic, but also sadly fitting given the number of musicians who have met untimely ends. It makes you think about the price of fame, the toll it can take on the human psyche.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the human psyche because a lot of listeners drew parallels between this song and the pressures of modern celebrity social media. The 24/7 news cycle, it's like the walls are constantly closing in, even for those who seem to have it all.
Absolutely. It speaks to this universal fear of being watched, judged, of losing control of your own narrative. And that fear can be amplified exponentially in the age of instant communication and constant scrutiny.
Which makes the escapism of I'm a Mover all the more appealing. Suddenly we're not talking about snipers and martyrs, but open highways and the open road.
Yeah, it's that classic tale of a restless soul. Always searching for something just beyond the horizon, you can practically hear the roar of the engine and feel the wind in your hair.
And what's interesting is how Dickinson captures that sense of both freedom and isolation. Life is a game just made for fun. I don't love nobody, I don't love no one. It speaks to that transient lifestyle, that constant movement that can be both liberating and lonely.
Yeah, it's like he's saying that true freedom sometimes means letting go of attachments, even if it means leaving a trail of broken hearts in your wake. We heard from a lot of listeners who identified with that feeling, that wanderlust that can be hard to explain but impossible to ignore. The call of the open road, the allure of the unknown. And in a way, it ties back to that theme of fate we were discussing earlier. Are we in control of our destinies, or are we just drifting along, guided by these unseen forces?
It's a question that probably doesn't have a right answer, but it's certainly one worth pondering. And speaking of pondering, let's wrap up this deep dive with a song that brings us full circle back to the power of music. And in this case, the art of reinterpretation, Iron Maiden's cover of Led Zeppelin's Communication Breakdown.
Oh yeah, talk about ending on a high note. It's a bold move to cover a band as iconic as Led Zeppelin. But Iron Maiden makes it their own while still paying homage to the original.
And Bruce's vocals are off the charts on this one. That raw energy, that scream at the end, it's enough to blow the roof off. But beyond the sheer power, there's this layer of Well, you guessed it, communication breakdown that resonates with the album's themes.
Absolutely. Even though it's a cover, it fits seamlessly into the album's narrative.
Yeah.
The lyrics about frustration, miscommunication, the desire for connection, those are universal experiences that transcend any one time period or musical genre.
Yeah, and it makes you realize that even rock gods struggle with the same things we do. Relationships, misunderstandings, the constant struggle to make ourselves heard. It's oddly comforting in a way.
It's a reminder that we're all human, all trying to navigate this messy, complicated world. And sometimes music is the only way to make sense of it all.
Beautifully said. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Iron Maiden's No Prayer for the Dying, what are some of the key takeaways you hope our listeners walk away with?
I think the biggest one is that there's always more to discover. Even in albums you think you know inside and out, these songs are like layers of an onion. The more you peel back, the more you find.
And that's the beauty of a deep dive, right? It's
Sure.
about looking beyond the surface, digging into the lyrics, the history, the context, and discovering something new and unexpected.
And don't be afraid to embrace the ambiguity, the open-ended questions that these songs raise. There's no right or wrong answer, just a journey of exploration and discovery.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So until next time, keep those turntables spinning, keep those lyrics close at heart, and keep on digging for those hidden gems.